outside? Should I run and hide? How do I take my company worldwide? Do you love the law? Did you watch Hee-Haw? What's the weirdest thing that you ever saw? What's it like in court? Favorite sport? Can you help with my book report? Is my hair too long? Am I right or wrong? And do you mind if I sing along to anything? Ask Alan anything in the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Ask Alan, the podcast. I'm Alan Crone, the CEO of the Crone Law Firm. And with me today is literally one of my favorite people, Michael Hooks Jr. Michael and I have worked together on a number of projects, and I think you're going to find his story very interesting, and the story of his company, Allworld, which has become the go-to, I think, at least my opinion, one of the go-tos, if not the go-to project management company in the Southeast, particularly in Memphis. So, Michael, thank you and welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Mr. Crone. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity to tell our story.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you on. And we, as you know, one of the things that we try to do with this podcast is spotlight important Memphians and important Memphis businesses. And a lot of our listeners are lawyers, but a lot of them are entrepreneurs. And so we like to talk about the entrepreneurial story. I think everybody kind of likes to see how successful people got where they are. So I appreciate you being willing to share some of those stories with us.
Absolutely.
Now, you've got one of those great Memphis names, so I'm not going to ask you if you grew up in Memphis. I think everybody knows you did. What's it like to be related to just some of the giants of Memphis history? Like Dr. Benjamin Hooks and the other members of your family.
Well, certainly, it comes with responsibility, and we've worked hard, and I instill that in my children to make sure that we continue the family legacy first and foremost. I was blessed to know Dr. Hooks, who is technically my great uncle, but more like a grandfather, very intimately and personally, especially in his last years. I saw and visited with him on a daily basis. We even had some business ventures together. And what I got out of that experience the most, and my family history, even predating Dr. Hooks, Julia Hooks, who was known as the mother of Beale Street, who talk about pandemic, the yellow fever pandemic. She stayed back when a lot of folks left to take care of the less fortunate. So that history goes back generations, and while certainly we have entrepreneurial spirit because Julia Hooks was an entrepreneur in her own right, we also have a philanthropy spirit that runs deep in our bloods, and it's my ultimate goal, and something I really want to do is to be known as a leader in that vein also. So when I think of the Hooks name, we want to carry on as trailblazers in philanthropy. We want to be God-fearing. Dr. Hooks was the pastor that I knew growing up. Want to continue to support our church and our community. But I do have a surprise for you.
What's that?
I've got 4 lovely parents. I consider my step parents as much as my parents, as my natural parents. But my natural parents were divorced when I was 5. Most of my school age rearing was in Chicago, Illinois, either northern suburban or south suburban Chicago, Illinois. I did graduate from White Station, but I only attended White Station for 2 years and Snowden for 1 year growing up in Memphis, Tennessee. Other than that, my K through 12 experience was in Chicago.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
A lot to unpack here. Let's talk about that. Which suburb of Chicago?
We lived in Evanston on the north side and South Holland on the south side.
Well, I went to high school in Belleville, Illinois, which is in southern Illinois near.
I know where that is.
Near St. Louis. Was at St. Henry's Prep Seminary in Belleville, Illinois for 4 years.
Wow.
And so I was on the speech team, which may come as a surprise to you.
Right.
And so we would go to to Downers Grove
I know we played football against them.
And Oak Brook and some of those suburbs for meets. And my daughter is now in college up there in Chicago. So that's another reason I like it, Michael. I really like Chicago. It's a great town.
We love Chicago too. My wife is from the Chicago area, Milwaukee. We both have family from the area, so we tend to visit. Pre-pandemic, we were visiting, 2-3 times a year.
All right. Well, tell me about Julia Hooks. That's a new name for me, and she sounds fascinating. What kind of businesses did she have?
So a school, a music school, and also her and her husband, my grandfather, started an orphanage. And part of the history is that while he was caring for needy children in the orphanage, one of the children actually murdered him. So yeah, that's part of unfortunately the tragic history, but they dedicated most of their life to giving back to the needy folks in the community. She was also one of the first African-American college graduates in the history of Kentucky. Berea College was her institution that she matriculated from. So even preceding Dr. Hooks, who we know is a giant, that family had history. And then of course, my grandfather and Brent's grandfather, my business partner, Brent Hooks, had business together, which was Hooks Brothers Photography. So that was the family business at the time, which is very historical in nature because they pretty much from high schools to civil rights movements took most of the photographs at the time. And they also had a photography school, where at the time, if you were African American, and you wanted to learn photography, there wasn't many choices in the Mid-South. So they ran that school.
Well, was Julia's music school on Beale Street, or where was it?
Absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm. Whereabouts on Beale Street?
I'm not exactly sure where. I have to. You hit me with it. I love history, so I'm gonna have to do my research and find it out.
All right, well, very good. And then, what's your favorite memory? I got to ask you this. What's your favorite memory of Dr. Hooks?
Oh, wow. There's so many, but I think probably the one that comes to mind is when I got to spend time with him and Nelson Mandela, intimate one-on-one time, and his daughter, Nelson Mandela's daughter. So we had some intimate moments, but I remember being with Uncle Benny, with Gorbachev, with 2 or 3 presidents. Oftentimes, he would just call me to drive, but I got the benefits of personal time around some great leaders. But one of the things he taught me was, and it's the way he operated that really taught me. It was less about what he said, but whether you're talking to the panhandler on the street or the United States president himself, you treat the man with the same level of dignity. And he lived in a high-rise building downtown, and he would treat, the man at the door the same way that he would the banker that we might go see for an investment opportunity. It was the same dignity and level of respect, and I've tried to emulate that throughout my life.
Well, that didn't surprise me in the least. I think he's one of those people that because was around Memphis so much, I think Memphians kind of took him for granted in the sense of, he was a big deal nationally and internationally.
Absolutely.
And I think as we begin to unpack his life, people realize that more and more. I hope that his legacy continues in that way.
Well, we're working on it through the Hooks Institute at the University of Memphis. For my birthday, my wife paid for the incorporation of the Hooks Family Foundation. So we got some things that we want to do that support him and my Aunt Frances's work.
What do you, What do you think he would think about Memphis in 2021?
That's hard to say. I mean, obviously we've got some challenges that, we need to work harder on overcoming. I think one of the things that made him unique was his ability to break through barriers of race and partisanship. He kept it real, so to speak, but at the same way, was not closed-minded with talking to individuals, regardless of their political affiliation or socioeconomic, status. And now we see so many individuals, stuck in the trenches, that I think he would definitely be a leader in that vein, right? So, but at the same time, we've made some advancements, and certainly we don't want to discount all the hard work that him and others have done historically to get us to where we are today. And I think he would challenge individuals to be more solution oriented, when it comes to advancing the ball towards justice.
Yeah, when I think of him, I kind of think counterbalancing him, a guy like Howard Baker. And
Absolutely.
You wonder how those guys would function in today's kind of polarized political climate, because both of them, as you say, both of them had their ideology. They believed in what they believed, but they could find ways to compromise.
Absolutely.
To
that was
make
a great example.
And that's just not getting rewarded very often in politics these days.
That's a great example. I mean, I can recall the works of Mr. Baker, so that's an excellent example of how compromise can lead to a solution-oriented outcome.
So, how did Michael Hooks Jr. go from White Station High School to Allworld? What prepared you?
I can't say one singularly, individual moment or thing for that matter that prepared me for what we're doing today. I wake up and thank God because I really outdid myself, and continue. I mean, the story's not over. We're grinding hard every day to be, not only one of the best in Memphis, we want to be one of the best in the world at what we do. But I will also say through, I tell people that success comes through trials and tribulations. Like, people ask me all the time, especially this younger generation, what is the secret sauce? How did we get to where we are today? And I tell them that I bump my head every day. I make mistakes that you don't see, certainly we're celebrated in when we win projects, but we're losing more projects than we're winning. The secret sauce is just we don't give up. We don't quit. We don't fold. And I'm teaching other young folks around me. I'm teaching my daughters, that you got to have the stick to itness. Is that right? Stick to it. The tenacity to keep going. And you talked about entrepreneurial spirit. I think sometimes this instant gratification that this millennial generation has embraced is going to hurt the long-term success of entrepreneurs. You got to be willing to, plan your work your plan, and adjust in between, but don't quit. And especially if your plans are rooted in dreams. My dream is to, honestly, somebody asked me the other day, I don't love project management. I don't love civil engineering. I love advancing careers. We have 42 full-time employees. When I started the company in 2010, it was just me. And my first employee was a part-time employee. We could barely afford to pay salaries, let alone benefits. We pay full health benefits, all employees, 100% of health benefits, 401k, up to a certain percentage. So we are, very legitimate albeit only 42 employees, but as you know, small businesses are the heartbeat and soul of an economy, contributors to this economy. And that's really what gets me up and out of bed every day. When I see a young engineer say, Mike, I'm absolutely loving this project I'm working on in FedEx. I couldn't imagine working on anything else. I'm trying to get more projects like that. I'm trying to employ more people like that. White Station, absolutely great experience. I still have great friends, and my siblings attended White Station. Hampton University in Virginia, my executive MBA program at the University of Memphis. All of that gave me certainly knowledge and skill to be able to do what I am today. But without the grit, the grind, the trials and tribulations, the success and the mistakes, I wouldn't be able to do what I am doing today. And the second thing is I've got some great mentors, and I've learned you got to filter mentorship too, right? Some advice, from some folks is not everything that you take in. It's just like reading a book, some of my textbooks, there's only one particular chapter that I ever go back to and refer to. The whole book, some of that doesn't work anymore. But certainly I've been blessed to be around some great people at the right time that have been extremely supportive. And like I said in the beginning, I try to give back in the same way.
What is the best advice you've ever gotten, and what's the worst advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, wow. So, when I first started the business, I had a mentor that told me essentially that, I didn't want to expand outside of Memphis. And I wanted to focus on, building my book of business in Memphis and before I expanded to other cities. And, man, we're blessed. We're in Meridian, Vicksburg, South Carolina, Hilton Head, South Carolina. We've got a project with FedEx where we've got a project manager stationed in Los Angeles, managing installs of electric vehicles. My point is, if I would have taken that advice, we might not be where we are today. But I did it strategically. I thought hard about what they said. We don't just say, oh, we're going to open up an office in Chicago because I love Chicago. It's typically that we have some type of strategic partner. It's typically that we have a value-added service that we can provide at the right time. So, I listened to what they were saying, but then I filtered it with a strategic move. I think the best advice is that I got so many good people that I can credit to. Tom Marshall and his father helped me start the business on Tiger Lane. He called me and said, I need a project manager. I said, me, and at the time, man, I really needed a job. I was at personal and professional low. And I turned that into an opportunity, man. I was essentially a clerk of the works, they call it, and I turned that into a business. But I remember during that time, my grandfather just gave me, my Uncle Benny gave me the best advice, and that's just to stay rooted in faith. A lot of times, you come through hard decisions, and you come through a moment in time as an entrepreneur where you're boiling mad and hot and you're ready to fight and cuss and fuss and, go back to your faith. And that's, combined with maturity. I'm 42. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 23. I'm probably younger than that because we had a storage business that we ran in college. But you learn through maturity and experiences on how to deal with situations on a day-to-day basis. And often I turn to my faith, as my great uncle advised me in those moments. So that was probably the best advice that he could have given me.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, you you don't have to do it alone. You got the creator of the universe and his Holy Spirit, not to get too religious here, but
No, that's okay. We can talk about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost all day long.
You do that, and it's almost not a fair fight.
Amen.
So
that's real talk.
I'm glad to hear you. I'm glad to hear you say that. So Allworld came out of that experience on Tiger Lane. How did you go from that? How did you put those pieces together? I'm guessing that it was one block at a time, but that had to be an exciting time looking back on it. To as you say, to take advantage of those opportunities. I think that's the hardest thing to do, is to see an opportunity and know how to capitalize on it appropriately.
Absolutely. I mean, it still is to this day, because you got to feed. The thing about projects, they got a start date and an end date. So you got to constantly be thinking. And some of our projects are small. We're managing a roofing project for Claiborne Temple that has less than a year timeline, and the project manager is not 100% assigned to that one project. So I've got to be constantly looking for work for his and her to do and moving the pieces around so that we can adequately cover and staff. That being said, you got to constantly be thinking about, okay, where's the next opportunity? And does this opportunity fit what we want to do? We also have people come to us and say, we want you to manage this widget manufacturing facility, and it may not be the best fit for us. There may be too much risk or too much uncertainty. So I think, and people ask me this too, essentially we're running an engineering firm, a civil engineering firm, project management rooted in a built environment. I'm not a civil engineer. I'm not a technical expert. I'm not an architect. We employ, architects, engineers, construction professionals. That gives me a different perspective and lens. It also allows myself and Brent and Chris, our chief people officer, we realized once we reached about 20 folks that we're a people business and we needed a designated person more than just an office manager or an HR coordinator. We needed a chief people officer to recruit, retain, and train our individuals. And during that time, as we were building those blocks that you mentioned, we realized that we had to have a core administrative team and free up these smart technical folks to do what they need to do. So we think that that's been a part of our success, and that most smaller entrepreneurs, I say this, are busy driving the truck and trying to drive the business at the same time, where we focus on driving the business.
Right. And I mean, if you look at your project list, it's a list of many of the major projects that have happened in Memphis over the last 10 or so years. You were involved in Crosstown. You talked about Tiger Lane, I'm a Man Plaza, Patriot Lake, Chisco Hotel, Harahan Railroad Bridge. How does it feel to be a part of those kind of signature landmark projects for your hometown?
Oh man, it's super refreshing, to be able to count those projects on your resume. But at one point, they didn't say crop. And then the other part of it is some of those projects that you named, there was a lot of doubt and uncertainty. And to be a part of that sweet thrill of victory, to see them through. They said Crosstown wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
They said Harahan Bridge wasn't going to work. Chisco was in jeopardy for a moment. But all of those projects, we were definitely a part of a team, some more than others, to see it through. And the experiences that myself, from a principal and the associates that we employ got to work on those projects, built their careers. So now what we're looking at as we transition from most of those projects you named, we were in a sub-consultant role. Now what we're looking at is how we can transform and start to lead projects. We were just awarded through the city of Memphis and Mayor Strickland and Robert Connect, the largest engineering contract that we know of in history to a minority firm, where we're managing the stormwater program. You pay through your MLG&W bill a percentage every month, and those dollars are building up in an enterprise fund. Well, now we got to figure out how to design and construct solutions so that your home won't flood. And all over the country, you know, your major engineering firms, your multinational engineering firms are the ones that come to Memphis and set up shop and manage these funds. We took a different approach. We led as the prime because we had relationships with these firms that we had worked for as sub-consultants all these years. We hired John Cameron, who's a former city engineer himself, and had retired from the city. And we said, okay, now we know we may not have, you know, Jim, Bob, and Susie as subject matter experts on stormwater, but how about you guys work for us and we lead the program? So that model, we ended up being competitively selected, and it worked. We're doing the same thing. The senior project manager on Crosstown, we hired, I think Chris Acuff's been working for us for the last month. Now we're leading the owner's representation for Union Row, and are officially part of their development team as of approximately 4 weeks ago. So we're beginning to, like you said, put those pieces together and position ourselves, not just to be on the team, but to be leaders of the team. Now, that doesn't mean to say that, you know, I'm getting ready to travel to Houston tomorrow, where 4 members of our team will be a sub-consultant to another engineering firm. And we're happy in that spot, in that space, because as you know, there's also risk in business, and you want to be able to calculate and mitigate your risk along every step and path. Never want to get into more than you can chew, right? Bite off more than you can chew.
The stormwater project is a very important project, as you said, because it talks about, it deals with flood remediation and that sort of thing. But
exactly.
But Memphis had one of the first stormwater sewage separate systems in the country.
You know your history.
And so maintaining that and taking that into the next century is important too.
Most people don't know that we had one of the first separated systems, meaning that, you know, the water you flush down your toilet goes down one pipe, goes to the sewer treatment center. The water that runs off the curbs and gutters in the streets goes typically straight to the tributaries of the river. In other major cities, all of that water goes to one place and drives up the cost of treating the water, because you're treating a lot of unnecessary water. So yes, Memphis was, and the history that we've researched tells us that I think it was, don't quote me on who, maybe General Lee, who spearheaded that, but it was a result of the yellow fever epidemic. Because during that time, they thought that the epidemic, the disease, transmitted through the sewer system. So the need to separate those sewer systems became a critical element of infrastructure development.
Yeah, there are lots of cities that are dealing with tremendous environmental impacts because of the unified system that we just haven't had to deal with. We've had a little bit of that, but not nearly as much as, say, a city like St. Louis, spending millions, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Billions.
Yeah.
No, billions in St. Louis. All of the cities along the path of major cities, Knoxville, Nashville, their EPA consent decrees on a per capita are up to twice as high as ours in Memphis.
Well, that's an exciting project. It doesn't sound exciting,
No, it doesn't.
but it's
But it
important.
is.
And I would imagine from an engineering standpoint, it's kind of one of those mother lode kind of project. If you're a civil engineer, to be able to work on something like that is got to be thrilling.
Exactly what I meant about career development for our associates. They're working on that. They'll be able to mark a subject matter expertise and it's allowed us to grow. I mentioned Vicksburg, Meridian, Birmingham, all of those projects have been a result of the knowledge that we learned working on the Memphis project, even the Houston project that we're currently bidding on. All of those projects, we built expertise because we learned what we needed to learn in the last 7 years working on the Memphis project.
It's like a lot of filmmakers in the 80s, when there were lots of films being made in Memphis, use that to build up the experience to then be able to branch out.
Absolutely, good point.
And it's a shame we don't have that level of movie making in Memphis anymore, and that has more to do with the state lack of incentive programs.
Programs, yeah.
Because Georgia and other places are outbidding us for that. But it just shows you what you can do, as you say, when you can get a critical mass of experience in a niche like that. That there's the old saying that the riches are in the niches.
Riches are in the niches, absolutely.
And so good luck to those, and we'll come back in a couple of years and talk about where that is going for you, because
absolutely.
Again, every city probably is going to have to deal with that aging infrastructure. Everybody's got a sewer system, and everybody's got stormwater of some sort.
Exactly. And that's why we focused on that as a subject matter expertise.
I was in the mayor's office when I'm a Man Plaza was being designed and discussed, and it was not without its own controversy. But what I always loved about that, and I have a buddy who lives out of town, and I brought him into town and was showing him around. We went by I'm a Man Plaza, and I explained what it was, and he very quickly said, and I just love this phrase, he said, this is probably the only monument dedicated to sanitation workers in the world.
I didn't think about it like that. You're absolutely
I didn't either, but I thought, that most monuments are dedicated to, great men and women,
right.
King, or, these days it's dangerous to start listing people with statues, but people who hopefully did great things. And these guys did great things. They just weren't what society would call great people in the sense of having a lot of fame. But those individual men who stood up really changed the world, certainly changed the United States.
Absolutely. And, those are the ones that often go unacknowledged, through history, not just the civil rights movement. So, it means a lot. We literally saw families of those individuals that were marked on that wall come to the site and break down in tears, and then turn right back around and acknowledge the leadership of the mayor and the council for funding such a historical monument.
Well, if you're a listener and you haven't been down, it's down near the FedEx Forum, on the south side of the FedEx Forum, behind it's just gone out of my mind, the temple.
Claiborne Temple.
You just mentioned a minute ago. Claiborne Temple, where a lot of those marches began, and it really is a powerful tribute to the sanitation workers and to that movement, and tangentially to Dr. King. But the other thing I liked about that project was it was open during the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of his death. So it had a lot to do with him, but it really was about the sanitation workers.
It really was.
Something it's just great about it. It's a great place to go to bring folks from out of town. And I know you were proud to be associated with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, what you got going on now that you can talk about? What's the future project that that you're working on now that you think you'll look back on and say that was a heralded project?
We mentioned Union Row. The pandemic has really impacted some of our growth. However, we're blessed in that we were deemed essential workers. I interviewed with the news channel on the effects of the pandemic, and you know, construction is still at an all-time high, and most of our work was not impacted. But there were a few private projects that were put on hold. But Union Row is strong, and we're working on that every day. And often in the beginning of our historical climb, we didn't get the private projects, and often women and minorities don't get an opportunity to work on those first, at least. So that's a huge project for us, because once again, it allows us to develop a niche with retail development, with hotel development, with office development. Fairgrounds is one of my favorite exciting that we're working on right now, man. I cannot wait for that to be activated. My father and Janet still live on South Parkway, so I grew up. I worked at Liberty Land over the summers. Did the Zip and Pippin, if you remember that.
Oh yeah.
So that's like a homecoming project for me, and to revolutionize that area around youth sports is something that I think Memphis really, really needs, not only from an economic impact with tourism, but also an opportunity for those local students in South Memphis and Beltline off South Parkway to have jobs, and also use the site once we fully activate it. We're going to continue to, we're looking at specific markets. Texas is a huge market that we've invested in. We've got an office in Texas, and we've already talked about our water resource work. That's the work that we're targeting. Our geographical information systems, which is based in mapping, but includes a whole boatload of information technology opportunity for data science, is an area that we've invested heavily in. Spend tens of thousands of dollars annually just on licensing the software. And that's allowed us also so the EPA, as we talked about the sewer and the stormwater systems, the EPA requires that municipalities digitally map their sewer systems. And we've developed a niche in that we've got a handful of associates that specialize in that. So as we grow, that's an area that we lead with, and the larger firms say, hey, you guys got that subject matter expertise, please join our team. So we're going to continue to develop that area of expertise, invest in our people and the software that they need and the equipment that they need. Federal work is something that we haven't entered into, other than some smaller projects with TVA, which is very similar in nature. So we're looking to get our 8A status, which is a minority qualification, which puts you in a special pool of programming. So those are some of the things that we have on the horizon, but we're also laser focused on quality. We've got a quality management system. We don't want to grow too fast to where we lose touch of making sure our associates are accountable, which is the first core value that we have. So we're constantly putting in place our protocol, processes, and procedures, and sticking to project management principles. You don't want to just jump into executing the work. We got to formally initiate the work, plan the work, then you execute the work, and you constantly monitor and control it before you close out. So those are some of the things we're doing.
Let me ask you this. What do you think the state of minority businesses in Memphis and the region is, in terms of where we are and what needs to be added to the mix to help grow more minority-owned businesses in Memphis?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things because I'm on the board of Memphis Area Minority Contractors Association, BBA. I'm obviously very involved in the Chamber of Commerce work. I think, you know, we've we've got to make doing business equitably just more intentional. First of all, I mean, similar to the way this mayor's administration and the council have said, you know, don't tell us why we can't do it. Tell us how we can, and every time we can't, absolutely, there are going to be opportunities where we can't do something. You're going to spend $1 million on a truck. Well, there's not any women folks or polka dotted folks or that supply trucks. So there's an example of one that's not doable, but we're going to document it, and we're going to make sure that the world knows that, hey, here was a missed opportunity. Perhaps Joe wants to be able to get into the truck business because the city of Memphis and Shelby County and Regional One, when you combine all of those entities, they spend millions of dollars on trucks. So somebody needs to be supplying this truck or this widget or whatever it is. I continue to say that access to information is part of the solution. As connected as I am, with my popular last name and all of the networks that I sit in, there are tons and tons of business opportunities that go right under our radar. So I say if I'm not knowing about it, then the average man really doesn't stand a chance. And it's all public information. It should be available, and we've got to just do better making sure that folks know at least what opportunity exists. I tell folks that are getting into business, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. Well, what is it you want to do? Well, I'm still deciding. Well, you need to do some homework and begin with the budgets of MLG&W, the budgets of Regional One, Shelby County Government, Memphis Airport Authority. See what type of dollars they're spending, where they're spending it, how they're spending it. And then you'll be a lot better prepared to see what the demand is to be able to meet that supply. So, we're working on that through some of the organizations that I belong to. But meanwhile, we need some of the leaders at those organizations to also start supplying it where it's open and fair. Also, I think, our school system, and I'm a product of Shelby County Schools Legacy MCS, obviously a board member. Our kids go to attend Shelby County Schools. My wife graduated from a public school. We need to do a better job with entrepreneurialism in the schools and teaching our students that it's not all, that I've had plenty of painful nights. That it's more about the sweat equity than it is, the outcomes of wealth and the high life. It's more about the long nights. My wife will tell you, we've missed a lot of family events so that I can be right up here in the office cranking out some work for a deadline. Now hopefully I've been able to make that time up in other ways, but you got to be able to see it through and not give up before you reach an opportunity of whatever you deem success looks like.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't realize is being an entrepreneur is right at the junction of exploring self and unemployment.
Amen.
And there's very little room between those two things.
Amen.
But it can be very rewarding. Now, you mentioned your office. I'll indulge myself just a moment. I love your office, that building. I looked at it twice over the years for my law office, and the guy who and again, Jim.
The attorney we bought it from, his family.
Yes.
I had to ask Brent. I forget his name, but his family. He passed away, but his sons had the property in their name, and we bought it from the attorney's son.
Yeah, he was a legendary trial lawyer, and he had it. It was built perfectly for a law firm circa 1980.
Yeah, for sure.
And all the offices, and what I loved was the library he had downstairs.
Yes, sir.
And
you have to come take a visit and see the renovations now.
I'd love to do that.
He's got a walk-in vault. Man, we pulled so many old telephone lines. Evidently, they had a call center going.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had telephone lines everywhere, all throughout the building. Whole lot of wood paneled walls everywhere. His office in the back, we turned it into more of a conference room, but his office was huge and it had a hidden door.
Yeah,
where he could push it and exit out the back.
Yeah, I would imagine he parked right next to that door.
Probably so.
Oh, and he had those shelves, and like I say, I looked at it a couple of times.
Yeah,
Miles Mason and I, when we were together, we looked at that, and it was both times that I looked at it, the building itself was too large, and they wanted for what we needed, and they wanted to try to do the whole thing at once, as you probably know.
Right.
But I love the building. I love the location. It was perfect for a law office because it's right down there near the courts and everything. But y'all have done a nice job, at least with the exterior. And I do want to come down and see what you've done with it.
Absolutely. Can't wait for you to see.
Yeah, you and I were supposed to have lunch, and the pandemic interrupted it. So at some point we'll have to rectify that. Once I've been a pandemic nerd. I know people that have been much more risk takers than I have. But if I don't go to lunch very often, and I can count on one hand the number of times I've been out to dinner. I carry out a lot, but I just don't eat out a lot. Of course, I haven't gotten the Rona, so
the Rona.
I think I'm doing okay. But
I think when we had that conversation, we were headed to Ghana in Africa
for Memphis in May. Yeah.
Yeah, we had to postpone our lunch, and by the time we came back, all the stay-at-home orders were in place. Rightfully so. I'm with you. I haven't been out as much. We do go out every now and then, and stay socially distanced and follow the guidelines. But hopefully here pretty soon, we can get to some herd immunity through the vaccination process and get back to a normal life.
I hope so. I think we all have learned. I don't care how much of an introvert you are. I think everybody has learned how important community is to being a human being. Having that personal touch with people. This Zoom stuff is nice and it has its place, but it just doesn't take the place of sitting around a dinner table with a nice adult beverage and
absolutely
or whatever you're into and telling everybody lies.
Exactly. We made sure we were talking about just the impacts of COVID-19 on our associates. And we made sure that we reminded everyone how important mental health is in these times, because you're right. You're closed off, socially, and folks can easily get into a dark space, being some of us don't have families, or, the family situation may not be perfect. So, we wanted to make sure that our healthcare provided an opportunity for folks at least, pick up the phone and do some telemedicine. It's more important for all of us, as strong as I think I am, to make sure that we've got a clear mental state during these times. And we forget that it's not just the physical aspects of Corona, but also the mental, due to being closed in and closed off and not seeing family and friends as often as you normally would.
Sure. Well, Michael, I really have enjoyed our conversation. I hope our listeners have. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Man, I appreciate you. I love what you're doing. Keep it up. It's fun to watch other friends like Mr. Moody and Miss Coletta and Mr. Mason. So can't wait to see who you got on next.
All right, well, very good. I want to thank everybody for watching and listening. If you've enjoyed the podcast, and come on, let's be real. This was a great podcast. Please pass it along, share it on social media, or email it to someone who you think might be interested in it. And we'll be looking for you the next time on Ask Alan the podcast. Again, my guest today was Michael Hooks Jr. What's your title over there, Michael?
I'm the Chief Executive Officer and founder.
CEO of Allworld. Is it Allworld? I just call it Allworld. Is it Allworld Construction?
Allworld Project Management.
Allworld Project Management. Spell it right if you talk about it on social media. Michael doesn't care what you say, just spell it right. That's always
There you go.
It's Crone. You can say whatever you want to about me, just make sure you spell it right. All right, Michael, thank you all. And I will
Thank you, man. Look forward to it.
All right, I'm gonna go get some justice.